Storytelling is a unique medium and often can take many different forms, be it physical, technological, or something people could even consider spiritual at times. These same stories originate and are often rooted in these cultural ties that can either connect an art form to a different culture or spread an ideal or story in a way that is simply beautiful. This same idea is not unique to me or you or even the community around us. It is an international idea, and a direct understanding of how our stories are different from one another can be somewhat of a necessity in common-day storytelling. Japan tends to have different cases and understandings than Western audiences. This is portrayed expertly through what could be considered 2020's best seasonal anime, Rent a Girlfriend. In Kinojo Karimashu, or Rent a Girlfriend, it details a rather foreign idea of commodifying relationships and the connection that people may feel through what most Westerners consider a real, genuine relationship. To see what I mean, in Japanese society there are multiple establishments that act as this gateway for buying services for men and women who may have gone through a rough breakup, past trauma, or simply are working to better themselves. Places like cafes and cosplay restaurants often show this, and is pushed even further in Kinojo Karimashu with the introduction of the app Diamond, which gives out rental girlfriends. It should be duly noted that in this situation it is purely for the emotional connection and not at all for the sexual implications that may come with it, and understanding that difference really changes perspectives that Western audiences have. This, however, is just the tip of the iceberg. In every facet of Japanese animation, you can see cultural identity from more Eastern and Western countries built into stories from their groundwork up to their final finished solution. Something really interesting is the school system. In Japan, instead of having prom and dances, they have cultural festivals and grade-based trips to historical or nationally important places. For example, a common trope in romance manga is a school trip to somewhere like Hokkaido, Okinawa, or someplace similar that allows the audience to not only experience the same cultural identity of the place in question, but also expressively notes the change in culture from region to region. Personally, the idea of a cultural festival is really intriguing to me. In a basic sense, it's a festival where each homeroom class and club comes up with some sort of activity that may be rooted in Japan's culture, or may simply be for fun. Students will then go on to set up a booth of sorts to sell food, services, or entertainment to not only classmates, but family, friends, and outsiders of the school all in one big event. It acts as a fundraiser for the schools, but it also creates what I consider a really impactful event if the students in question can get properly involved. In Hyoka, a mystery-based slice of life show, it follows the idea of a cultural festival, and in a brief 6 episodes, it tackles the preparation. I'm getting ahead of myself. Most obviously, that alone cannot make a story a masterpiece, let alone good at that. However, if it is paired with great character arcs, plot elements, and generally good animation or art, it can really do something special. For this, I bring up Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan, or Shingeki no Kyojin, is an international breakout hit in anime. Starting with the first season that aired in 2013, Shingeki no Kyojin follows Eren Yeager in his journey to defeat all the Titans. The story alone has much to be said and can be considered a masterpiece in the lives of many. However, the focus is not on so much its status, but why it's deemed so. Attack on Titan was one of the few animes to go to what is considered the mainstream, as it blew up not only in the Eastern and Japanese markets, it also took hold of the West of the more Americanized audiences in a way that was expressively brilliant. Hajime Isayama, the writer for Attack on Titan's manga, not only used in-depth, well-routed, and properly foreshadowed plot elements that retained payoff for literal years, but also created characters that showed genuine growth through multiple story arcs and a change of mindset, physical form, and much, much more. It uses a unique setting of humanity confined inside walls to protect from Titans, to not only expertly deliver fear and emotional payoff to events that happen in the first couple of episodes, but also gives you a real insight into the world. Entering the 2021 winter season, Attack on Titan will be airing its final season, and as many fans say goodbye to the beloved series, there's a lot to learn from how Attack on Titan created its own culture that people indulge in. Following the trend of most Japanese manga and anime, there is a clear take from cultures other than the main one of Japanese life. This is especially apparent in the fourth and now airing season, in which they showed multiple different nations and the idea of racially based segregation, which is common in other nations outside of Japan during the various world wars. To properly integrate a vast array of cultural ideas isn't easy. There are plenty of cases where it may even fall flat in the Japanese mainstream, and when it does fall flat, it really hits the fan. Recently, Crunchyroll, a Japanese anime streaming service, announced a new series by the name of Gigavern. The team behind it not only had never created an anime before, but they also had a new director and did a poor job of adapting the manga material. In the anime industry, most shows often take from a manga or light novels to adapt the material into a show that can be watched at a wider audience. In the case of Gigavern, the manga wasn't terrible, but by no means was it good. And taking an inexperienced team and pairing it with a manga that tries to use the same culturally diverse elements and changing its animation form from the normal hand-drawn version to a computer-generated one that is generally looked down upon by the anime community only led to disaster. As of right now, Gigavern is debatably the worst anime to ever exist, and is by far the only one with such a high backing and such low ratings. However, that is what taking risks in storytelling may be about. Being ready to become what is considerably the worst anime, or become a common day masterpiece that people will look fondly back on. In my time as an anime and manga fan, there's a lot I've read, watched, and consumed in story material. However, some stays the same, always. I'm always genuinely fascinated and interested by the storytelling techniques, the vast character types, and the darker side of a seemingly lighthearted story. Anime has a way of communicating a story that simply no other medium seemingly does, and at its best, it becomes a catalyst for sharing ideas and more through a simple 12-episode long season. This understanding, as long as writers and mangasas keep evolving their work, anime will stay exceptionally